Hello there and welcome back. In this video, we are going to continue our Podman journey and we are going to take a look at how you can create pods. Let me adjust the volume. Good. So basically, Podman allows you to create not just containers and configure them to run, but also pods. And pods may be familiar to you from Kubernetes. So pod is basically a init container which is going to run one or more containers. Usually in Kubernetes, the idea is one container per pod, but you have the option there as well to have multiple containers. And we would like to create a WordPress pod. And this WordPress pod is going to consist of basically a database and the WordPress container. So let's get to it. With Podman, we can create a pod called WP pod. And we want to map the port 8080 to 80. This is the, let's say, shell. And once this pod is created, we can use the Podman pod ps-a pod ps, and technically this shows you that this is the pod which was created. This is just a shell, and we are the one who are supposed to give meaning to it. In order to give meaning to it, we can run a MySQL or MariaDB container inside there. And this is what we are going to do. And we have to specify the pod, WP pod, which will be the pod hosting this container. And we configure the necessary environment variables for the MariaDB container. And after it was pulled, it will be started. And once the MariaDB container is running, we should be able to use the Podman pod ps and -a Podman ps -a -pod. And here you will be able to see that we have the shell running and we have the MariaDB as well running. Now, what we have to do is to also spin up the WordPress container. And in order to spin it up, we have to configure the database where it has to connect and the credentials. And once this is done, it is going to pull the image and start the container. And then it will connect to MariaDB. And the result of this is that in the browser, after a while, we will be able to access the WordPress web page. So let's see what the processes look like. And here we can see that the WordPress is running with Apache. And the Podman pod has basically a top argument. And for the top argument, we have to specify the name WP pod. And let's do this way, WP pod. And now we can see that in our pod, the MySQL is running and the Apache is running. And we also have the Podman pod logs, WP pod. And basically, these are the logs of the MySQL and the WordPress pod. All right, so in the browser, if we visit http CentOS 10 8080, we should see the WordPress installation page. So let's give it a site and the username and the password start, exclamation 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Start, exclamation 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And install WordPress. This is the email, gmail.com. Install WordPress and log in. And just to verify, this is a fully functional WordPress installation. And we are in. Now, if we check the logs, we should see that the WordPress was basically communicating with the PHP and stuff like that. And technically, we have our own WordPress site. And this is all running in Podman. I think this is a pretty cool thing. What we can also do is to use Podman pod inspect wp pod, and this is going to show us all the containers. We have the infra container, the DB container, and the web container. The infra is the very first command that we used. This is the pod create. All right, we have seen the processes, and if we were to redo this example with a rootful container, then we would have a dedicated IP address as well. So in the inspect, if we grab the IP address, you will see that we don't have any IP addresses. Good. Okay, so with the pods, we can use the Podman pod pause, WP pod, and the Podman pod unpause, WP pod. These are going to pause and unpause the pod. And we also have the Podman pod stats, WP pod, which is going to show us the live resource utilization for this pod. How much the web, how much the DB is consuming of the resources. All right. I think for the WordPress, this was all. So Podman pod stop WP pod. And afterwards, we can use the Podman system prune-a, and this is going to remove all stop containers and so on, and the Podman ps-a and the images and the Podman container -a container list is going to show us that the containers are also stopped. So what we can also do with Podman, and this is going to be the conclusion of this video, is to save a container, create a snapshot of a container and transfer it, and then restore it. So for example, we have the Podman pull docker.io library httpd latest, and this is going to pull an Apache container, and then we can use the Podman run -d --name web, and we will use the docker.io httpd latest. This is the image that we just pulled. And now we can use the Podman exec-it a7c. This is the container ID bin bash. And we can use echo h1 Apache and h1. And here the user local Apache htdocs index.html is our file. Echo. Good. Now we can exit from our container, and then we can use the Podman commit my web, and this is going to be actually web, and we use the httpd v1 and commit with double M. And now we have under the Podman images a new container image. And once this was created, we can use the Podman stop web and Podman rm web. And then checking the images, we still see that both of the images are there, but we want to restart it with the Podman run dash dt d dash dash name new web localhost httpd v1. And now the Podman ps-a is going to show us that the container is running. And then we can go ahead and exec again. And we use the 44e. And then in the echo, we create the other and other.html and exit from it. And now we use the Podman commit new web. Then the change is going to be label foo equals bar. And we commit it as httpd v2. Now the Podman images is going to show us that we have both of the container images that we just created. And we can save a running container as well. So Podman save -o my new httpd.tar and localhost httpd v2. And in the current folder, we will have the new httpd tar file. And now we can use the Podman stop -a Podman rm-a and Podman rmi-a. This is going to clear up the images and the processes. And now we want to load our saved container. So Podman load -i my new httpd tar, and the Podman ps is not going to show that this is running, but the Podman images is going to show that this is the container, and the run is going to be able to take the httpd v2, and if we exec to it -it 760 bin bash, then under the user local user, what was the htdocs, we should see the two files that we have created. And technically that's all I wanted to show you in this video. So let's do the rmi to prepare for the next video. See you in the next one.